Just very quickly, I am Val from DBL, and I sit out of DBL's newly incorporated office here in sunny Singapore. I will be playing facilitator for this session, where I'll be mining the chat board in general. So just to explain the format of this call, we'll be sharing some research, industry insights, and best practices in this very engaging 1.5-hour masterclass that will be led by DBL's awesome CEO, Angela Hans, whom I will hand over the presentation to in just a second. We are also very fortunate enough to be joined by Jonathan Kwan, Executive Director of the Southeast Asian Association of Graduate Employers, or SEAAGE in short, as support to this event. So let me quickly hand over to Jonathan from SEAAGE for him to introduce himself and SEAAGE before we hand over the session to Angela. So take it away, Jonathan.
Thanks so much, Val, and to Angela, and really appreciate the opportunity to work with you guys together. For familiar faces on the call, it's such a pleasure to see you, and for all the new faces, which there are many to me. My name's John. SEAAGE hopefully is something you might have heard of, but if you haven't, we're a nonprofit association focused on you. Practitioners that are passionate about early talent, whether you are on the recruitment side, the development side, educational institution, or a service provider that's trying to up the game. Our job is to pull everybody together, create this kind of community broadly across the region of Southeast Asia, and hope that everybody can up the ways of doing stuff. And if you've known about us, you know that DBL and SEAAGE have had a strong partnership over the years. So I will turn it over to Angela, and I'll say a couple words at the end about some upcoming SEAAGE stuff that we're doing beyond today. Cheers.
Fantastic. Thanks, John. And thank you to all the SEAAGE directors who continue to support all of us members and non-members and find opportunities for us to come together and connect together in the region. So thank you for all that you do and you continue to do for us. It's a privilege to support and have your support in this session today. Thank you. Welcome, everybody, and it is wonderful to see you all. My name is Angela Hans. For those who don't know me, I am CEO for Development Beyond Learning, based here in Sydney, Australia. And for those of you who know me, you know that I also am very passionate about traveling, and I love visiting Asia region. I'm normally there every 4 to 6 weeks. This was, of course, pre-global pandemic. So we're now merging on the year anniversary of me being unable to do any travel outside of Australia. So I'm immensely missing the opportunity to see everybody and to be in the region. So this is a great way to do this virtually. So great to see you all, and thanks for joining us. We will get started. Thank you, Val, for the introduction and for I guess the tips and the housekeeping for the session today. We want this to be as interactive as possible. Please feel free to share any comments, thoughts coming into it. And what we're really excited to do today is to present to you all our latest research and data that is coming out of trends in talent and how companies are starting to think about the future direction and the strategy and how we're supporting talent. And we're really going to put a particular lens and focus on early career talent in this session today. A lot of this data and information is very much in reference to a lot of global talent levels coming into play. But of course, knowing the group that we have together and how we're wanting to contribute, we're going to really hone that in and get more laser focused on that as well. So I'm just going to get my screen shared, make sure everybody can see what we need to see here. And for those who are not familiar with Development Beyond Learning, I know we've got several people here who's the first time who's experienced connecting with us. Thank you and welcome to those. We're a global company. We provide human skills development for the future workforce. So we are a training company. We're backed by behavioural science. We're with first-class trainers, and we do have an unparalleled heritage in early talent. 2020 has been a massive year for all of us, but more so for Development Beyond Learning, with some amazing client partnerships that we have had around the world. And we've got some of those client partners joining us today on the call. So welcome to those who have joined us. And in the period of 2020, as a business, we've supported over 120,000 students, young talent, ranging from interns, graduates, students, and even managers, as we're navigating and really thinking about what needs to happen and how do we support capability through this talent and the lens of this talent coming into the workforce. And of course, we've been very honoured recently to be recognised by some of our client partners in awards by the ISE and the Learning and Performance Institute, which we're delighted to be part of. So moving on, one of our missions, some of you may have heard all this already, we have a big mission at DBL, and one of our missions is that by 2025, we want to support 1 million young people. And what we class young people as individuals range between the age bracket of 18 to 35. So a really, really big majority chunk there. But our goal as a business, our purpose, why we exist, is we want to support 1 million young people every year by 2025, and doing that through various ways, through client partnerships, through pro bono, through any opportunity that we can provide to do that. So really important, we want to share that. We're really passionate about it. So if you ever hear any of our team talking about what we're about to do, it's probably because we're driving it through this vision coming in here. So today we are going to talk about quite a bit. We've got quite a bit to cover. We want to give a bit of an update about how we're seeing the COVID context, and really how is that starting to play out, and how is it starting to shift in the early career talent context as well. We want to share some research and implications for supporting early career talent, latest research. This is all hot off the press. In fact, this region is the first region to receive our latest data and insights that have come through. So we're excited to share that with you all. And we also want to really start to provide some really tangible outcomes. What are some key points or some key outcomes that you can go away and immediately think about and consider when you're looking at either pre-boarding of your early career talents, whether that's your interns or your graduates or entry-level roles, and of course the onboarding of this talent coming through into your business. And then of course the ongoing support is also being a discussion, not only addressing the incoming cohorts that are happening, but also the cohorts that we've had to manage during 2020, and what we can start to consider and think about there. So without further ado, I'm going to get going and get started here. And what I'd love to do is actually get a bit of insights from the fantastic representation we have on this call. So we want to take a poll, and Bibi, I'd love you to launch that if you can. This poll is: when do you anticipate your early talent returning or remaining in the office or on site? Got a few options there. Is it next 3 months, in the next 3 to 6 months? Maybe it's next 6 to 12 months, beyond 12 months, or are you unsure? Are you still waiting for some direction from the business? I'd love to get your thoughts. When do you anticipate your early talent, whether it's interns, graduates, entry-level roles, when do you anticipate them returning to the office? Great, I see we've got about 40% voted, a few people considering their options. Take a few seconds. Okay, excellent. We're just about over 80% voted, which is fantastic. 10 more seconds and then we'll close that. Okay, fantastic. Bibi, my fantastic colleague, can you please close the poll? Excellent, and please share that result so everyone can see. Right, so interesting. So 31% anticipating a hybrid office, remote return working environment so far. And then close behind, we have 23% looking at in the next 6 to 12 months. And then that's followed 16% either being in the next 3 months, or there's also an unsure there, which is not uncommon with what we're starting to see in other markets as well. Great, thank you very much, Bibi. And we got one more poll that we're just wanting to share. So I'm just going to move on to the next one. Great. Thinking about the next 6 months, what do you think are the most important challenges for your early career talent? Few options here. So I'm going to give you a half a minute or so just to reflect on that. Excellent. Just about getting to 50%. We want a few more reflections coming through. So this is factoring next 6 months. So we've got companies who are looking at hybrid. We've got companies who are unsure if they can get talent back into the office. And we've also got the hope to bring talent back in the office in wherever location you are. Great, I'll just take 10 more seconds on that. Just got a few more votes I see coming through. And we'll close that in 3 seconds. Great, thank you so much. Bibi, if you can please share those results. All right, huge jump here. So 75% networking and building relationships is very much a big concern or a challenge that's starting to be faced, followed by working with remote people and teams. Yes, I think that is very common across the globe. And then belonging and well-being coming through at 46 and 41%. Excellent. Thank you. That's excellent. Thank you everyone for your information on that. And I will just close that. Thanks, Bibi, for your help. So what we're wanting to do here is wanting to get a bit of a sense of how we're tracking for those of you who are not familiar or are familiar with DBL and what we do. We conducted a survey back in August looking at how companies globally, by HR professionals, HR leaders, how we were really starting to feel and navigate the COVID-19 and the pandemic environment. We had fantastic data coming out of that, and we're actually now in the process of launching a 2.0 survey. So Val will put a link in the chat box for those who have not yet had a chance to participate in this survey. We welcome and would encourage and love your input to represent your company and also your region. Would love to understand where are you starting to navigate this next environment that we're in, and how are you starting to think about how that's supporting talent. And we are then excited to then share some of that talent, some of those results coming through. As a bit of an insight, we've actually had this 2.0 survey out in the marketplace for the last 3 or 4 weeks, and some early insights. Here's what we're starting to capture. So just taking through a little bit more to what we just talked about in the poll. So next 6 months, what are we starting to get indicating globally as a real challenge coming in for supporting talent? Networking and building relationships is definitely high up there, as we were very similar to our poll today, and also very closely behind the well-being and belonging. So very in line with globally how we're starting to receive these trends coming through the marketplace. And then of course, when starting to look at, oh, sorry, I'm just wanting to make sure my poll stopped. Can I just check, Val, is the poll showing or is it stopped?
It is still showing here.
Okay. Bibi, can I just get your help to close that poll for me, please?
I can't see it though, Angela. I can only see your slides. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks so much. I'm not sure what's going on there. That's a bit strange. So I'll just get rid of that. Okay, so going back into it, and then of course looking at anticipate your early talent returning to the office. We have the return of office remote working, 45.5% starting to indicate that as being a kind of that hybrid idea of how we're starting to think about bringing workforce back into the environment and how we're navigating all of that. And so with this, a lot of the content and the data that we're sharing today is to actually help support both those areas and how that's going into that idea as well. So coming into it, so Future Talent for Pulse 2.0, there's a link on the chat. Please just copy that, paste it into your browser. We'd love to hear from you, love to have you involved in that talent pulse as we move forward. So moving straight into the information we've got at hand. I'm just going to do one thing here. Sorry, everybody, I've just got an annoying poll I need to get out of my screen, which I just have done that. Thank you very much. I'm not sure why that was happening. Okay, back on track here. So first point of data here, 1.6 billion are at risk of unemployment. And this was nearly half of the global workforce. This was predicted by a Deloitte survey back in May 2020, coming in on that. And just to continue on from that narrative, what we've also shared here is a bit more context around recent research and data that's coming through into place. Singapore's unemployment rate, for those in Singapore would have seen that the unemployment rate has climbed to the highest in a decade, with the sharpest decline in Q1. In Australia, we've seen a reduction in people aged 15 and over in work from 62.5% to 58.7%. And in UK, we are expecting to fall by 9%, putting 7.6 million people on there. Hong Kong's a really interesting one. We've got graduate vacancies down by over 50%. Hong Kong, of course, has also had a double whammy of not only COVID-19 to manage, but also the impact of social unrest. So some really interesting insights coming out of that. And employees now rank losing their job as their biggest concern. With that, 88% of employees say that the morale has been impacted by COVID worries. And what this is summing up for us globally is that the economic uncertainty is causing concern for the economic future. So this is starting to play out quite strongly, particularly when we look at early career talent. And this is a really interesting snapshot to come through on that. When we look at the shift to working from home and the permanent global reality, it's not necessarily all negative. There are 74% of companies planning to shift to more remote work post-COVID, and the data and the poll that we've just shared is starting to share that trend. In the US, we're seeing 62% of employees now work from home versus what used to be 29%. So a massive increase coming through around the, I guess, the acceptance and the acknowledgement that that employees have the ability to work from home. And while there are some negatives, 63.6% of people say that they miss aspects of working from an office. And the main reason being cited is due to lack of socializing is coming through as a very big piece. I know we've done a very strong job in trying to support socializing and networking in virtual environments, but this is very much still coming out as one of the main reasons why individuals are missing aspects of working in an office. So on the whole, people are coping really well, coping very well under the circumstance that we're in. We've got over 93% of people able to perform their job from home as well as normal, which has really, really tested and challenged a lot of industries about the assumption that this was not possible pre-pandemic. So we've now proven as a workforce that we can actually perform jobs well, and if we're equipped and got the right setup, then it does not impact someone's performance. We've got over 67% of people say that they are more productive working from home due to fewer just distractions. I'm sure a few of us on this call may definitely concur with that thought process. And over 83% of people say they enjoy working from home, even during a global pandemic. And you'll see this data points, we've actually referenced the data where we've captured this from. So please feel free to take notes of this data, use this for any internal dialogue that you might need to help support any positioning or thought processes that you've got. And the final one here is that overall, 60% would choose to work from home versus returning to an office. And while this is all very well and good and this is going really well, one thing that we're starting to see as a bit of a trend is that when we're looking at the stats and the statistics, younger people are more likely to want to have more time in the office than older demographics. And that's becoming quite clear in both the feedback that's coming through on internal surveys or industry surveys that are coming through. And what the data is starting to reflect on that, the reason is that we're identifying that young people need office more in the first 5 years of their career. And there's also a lot of different socioeconomics and dynamics at play with young talent. They might not be in a very hospitable environment to work from home. They might be in a flat share with several people, so it doesn't allow them to have the right space that they need to. They also might not be working in an environment that makes them feel like they can perform their best as well. So that need, that shift of how those first 5 years of the career, we're starting to see that out of all the things around people coping it, this young talent actually is still thriving and looking for the ability to be able to connect back in office coming through. So one great thing that's come out of the pandemic, and one thing that we as a business have started to see and observe, is that COVID-19 has really put well-being front and center for organizations, both from a physical aspect, mental, but also financial security. What we're starting to see is organizations really looking at the human aspect top of the agenda when looking at any strategic direction coming through. And it's really starting to move quite positive, purpose-driven cultures in organizations. And there's more human-centric rewiring of how the relationships between individuals and organizations are focusing on that. What's been really, really quite encouraging coming throughout the pandemic as well is that there is an increased understanding of the relationship that technology and humans can actually play in the workplace. And we've kind of debunked a little bit of this thinking of AI, the robots are coming to take over our jobs, what's going to happen with that. We're really starting to now understand and appreciate that there are roles for technology and the human talent, and how do we now start to better place and set that up for that approach coming through. So some really positive thoughts there. All in all, what this data is trying to say to us is that COVID-19, there's been a renewed sense of we need our people and we have to take care of them. And I think as individuals who our roles are all about supporting humans and helping humans to be the best versions of themselves in the workplace, I think we can all agree that's been one positive outcome out of a very terrible global situation that we're starting to feel and sense. I'm just going to pause there before we jump into a bit of early career talent context. Val, how is it going in the chat? Any comments, any sharing, anything at this point?
Thanks, Angela. No burning questions for now, but I'm sure there will be, particularly as we go through this session.
Fantastic. No problem at all. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go into the early career talent context, taking all the data that we've just shared around talent and what's going on there. There is particularly a compelling and noteworthy thought process when we consider that the research that shows the transition of someone going from student life into the workplace, we are aware that this transition is becoming the most challenging for anyone in their career. This was data that was shared well before the pandemic. And what we're seeing coming out and coming through this period of time at the moment is that there is an even more stressful transition starting to take place for this young talent. They were feeling it before, but this combination of lack of security, not being able to connect with the employers as they've traditionally been able to, is starting to now transition that workplace environment where it's resulting in a bit of increased anxiety for young talent. There's a bit of fear, shock, there's a bit of loneliness and depression and feelings at time. These challenges are coming across widely spread with employers and students. And so this is where I think as an industry, we have a real opportunity in how we start to address that up front, how we really think about that, and then how we start to approach that when we are looking to pre-board or onboard this young talent coming into it. Another interesting stat here for those who've joined DBL sessions before, I think back in 2019, we delivered a resilience session in Singapore, actually hosted by our friends at Bloomberg on behalf of SEAAGE. Thank you again. And we actually identified that resilience was a very key perceived problem and a lack of resilience that students have. So the impact of COVID and those challenging times is yet unknown, but the mental well-being is likely to be a major concern for the future of early career talent. So what this slide is really trying to demonstrate here is these aren't new things that have just come into play. We've actually been identifying some of these areas and challenges before coming into 2020, and now we're just seeing that starting to heighten, and we're not really quite sure the full impact of how that's going to result coming through the next 6 months and onwards from that. And of course, as you can see through various articles globally throughout the world, we know that young people's wellbeing has been the most impacted by a pandemic. We're seeing increased reneges on job offers, for example. We're hearing trends where students are maybe not choosing to go into the workforce this year and in fact going to go back to study because that's the comfort that they're feeling. There's some shifts and trends happening on that. And I think there is an opportunity in how we can start to address where those feelings are coming from for that young talent, how we can support them moving in. So one piece of information I want to share here is looking at what evidence suggests early career talent will continue to struggle in a hybrid future. So all this data that we're sharing, it's definitely in reference to whether your company is looking at a future hybrid workforce, a combination of working remotely and in person in office, whether you're also looking at a fully remote working environment, like some companies are starting to address, and then also the option of coming back into office and doing that as well. This information, this data has actually come from the CIPD, which is a professional body for HR and people development, for those of you who aren't familiar with them, as well as some other data points that are coming in on that. But what we're starting to see here is that respondents with the least amount of professional experience, that 0 to 5 years, are more likely to want to be in the office more often. So this is coming back to some of the data that we were sharing before and how that's starting to be addressed. 7 out of 10 said the office was important for learning and development, while 2/3 said their career had been helped by relationships they made in the office. So CIPD, which is the professional body, has warned that increased hybrid working risks a growing two-tier workforce. So there's spending time in the office is going to be extremely important when we talk about visibility and how we're allowing those connections to take place. But also there is a concern or a warn about how we look at the gap of people with the space to work from home and those who don't. So how do we actually support and manage in those environments coming through? And again, if anyone is happy to share or have an idea of how the company, your company, is looking at how you're supporting hybrid working environments, please do share any insights on the chat function. But I'm sure everyone else on the call would love to hear that coming through. Excellent. So our research, going to check on time here, we're doing good. So taking all this data, taking all this information, the various data points that are coming into it, we now want to really start to provide what does that look like and how does that come into play. The human impact of COVID on the future of workforce. For those of you who do know development beyond learning, who know that we really thrive off behavioral science principles and thinking, we lean very closely into a theory called self-determination theory. And this is a theory that starts to really look at the most human intrinsic ways that humans like to respond and coming in on that. What we wanted to share here is a bit of research against what we identified in our first survey end of last year, and then how is that starting to unfold and unravel as we look at the top concern for talent. What is talent saying to us when they are starting to think about where their concerns are lying and what they're doing on those areas. So the top concerns coming through here is talent managing their wellbeing remotely. So that's very much addressing from our research to the data that we've just shared globally, followed by continuing to deliver against their targets. And then close behind that, demonstrating agility, endurance, and pivoting talent to work remotely is becoming quite key critical points here. This particular session or this particular question is ensuring that early career talent feel they belong as a major concern. And the top, as you can see, a very, very big response rate coming in is how are employees ensuring that they feel they belong to the organization, or how is the talent ensuring that they feel they belong to the organization? So there is a concern, a genuine concern about how talent is wanting to manage and navigate that piece coming through. And then of course, with this last piece of data here, as the ability to work and build relationships is, again, supporting that data that we're starting to hear, a really big concern, that networking and building relationships, followed by how to work with people and teams remotely. So depending on what environments they're in, if they're in remote, if they're in person, how do they flex and be agile in those different environments? And how do they make sure they can work with people and with their teams coming through? And then, of course, this last piece of research here, the biggest barrier facing early career talent practitioners is how to create a sense of cohort, becoming the biggest main concern here. So creating or maintaining a strong sense of cohort. You may have started to feel that as you were navigating and pivoting quite quickly in your 2020 programs. That concern is continuing to play out this year, and followed by how are we understanding the most important skills or competencies to focus on. So I'm glad to say we actually have some information and insights on what the most important skills and competencies are to focus on, and we'll be sharing that very shortly in this session. And here are some results, early results coming through. So remote working and adaptability, resilience are seen as key skills. For those who haven't seen this data before, what's been very, very interesting about this is, while all these skills are very, very important, and there definitely isn't necessarily an order of priority, we've seen a shift in the importance of what skills need to happen in a hybrid working environment, or where there might be a combination of predominantly remote working. So skills like self-management, teamwork and collaboration, adaptable mindset, resilience training, taking charge of your career during change. That's all about change management. These are all human skills that we call, that are helping individuals to navigate either complex or ever-changing environments. So that's kind of created quite a shift in the order of the timing of when we should prioritize that. I would say 2019, before 2019, some of these skills you'd probably be able to get away with providing them in the first 3 to 6 months, maybe 6 to 12 months of somebody onboarding into a business. Now these skills are looking to be addressed well upfront, whether at pre-boarding or whether coming into an onboarding program with your business coming through. So key themes coming out of our research and seeing what we're doing is that employers are concerned about the well-being of their talent and also their ability to deliver. There's lots of uncertainty, but no expectation that things will go back to how they were. I think there is a sense of that still. There is a sense that while some countries might be going back to a normal life, or a kind of a more feeling of under control life, there is other regions where our talent base is still carrying a fair level of uncertainty. And there is concern about how to support the belonging, the connection, and the relationships. And remote skills, connection, and well-being are reoccurring themes, very, very much reoccurring themes globally in every single region that we are talking to. All the data points are showing that these three things are becoming top of mind and as pressing priorities for companies to focus on. Love to hear any thoughts. Val, I'm just going to pause again. I know there's lots of data I've been sharing. I'm hoping people are taking lots of notes. Is there anything anyone shared in chat?
Yes, Angela. So some core themes coming out of the chat bot surrounding fresh graduates. Thanks, Debbie, Azrin, and Jill for your questions. So Debbie has asked, are companies rethinking their fresh grad hiring criteria? And Azrin has asked, how can we support fresh graduates in navigating the uncertainty while working remotely? And last question from Jill is, what is the suggested onboarding program for new hires in this current remote working environment?
Fantastic. Great questions. Thanks, Val. Well, good news is that we actually are going to share a bit of information about that, both on the prioritization of what type of skills. If you were to look at investing and providing development and human skills for your talent, we have collated our research together and have actually come out with our point of view on what those skills should be and the focus of that. So we'll be sharing that with you shortly. And we'll also give you an example of how you might think about where you flow those skills, as in the timing of when you might provide that, when you might want to consider that during the early talent life cycle. So we'll be sharing that shortly, but great questions. Thank you. Excellent. So great little line here, or quote here from McKinsey. Feel free to use quotes wherever you can when you're trying to influence internal stakeholders. This is a great one. The requirement to prepare for the future of work has shifted from being a distant hypothetical to a very immediate priority. So coming back to DBL, what we're thinking about, how we work with our partnering clients, where we start to think about the core human intrinsic behaviors to really how do we support humans in the environments that they're currently navigating and where we want them to transition and move forward. We look at the self-determination theory model, and the self-determination theory model looks at autonomy, connectiveness, and capability. And what's been very fascinating coming through this period of time, coming through 2020, coming into 2021, is that autonomy is on the rise. Now, this is a very interesting point, as we all may be aware, particularly when talent are transitioning from where they are now to where they need to be. Let's take early talent from when they're a student going into their first workforce. We see traditionally autonomy drop dramatically. It seems to be a second nature thing that happens as a result of the pandemic, as a result of creating remote working environments, hybrid working environments. We're actually seeing autonomy on the rise. This is to allow individuals who want to have more control on the situations they can control. So that increase is starting to happen, and we're seeing it very evidently through a lot of our programs globally. Connectiveness, that's dramatic. Reducing. Now, when we talk about connectedness, this is through either formal or informal connections, whether it's through social engagements, connecting with key stakeholders, working in teams. We're seeing that connectiveness is dramatically being reduced. Traditionally, pre-pandemic, that's normally on an increase. So we're seeing an opposite happening in the last 12 months or so. And then what we're really starting to see is that capability is becoming the rising star, becoming the talent, the future star of the show for us, in order for us to help our talent become more autonomous and to build connectiveness. It's all about how we're providing them the best capability to do that. Coming in on it. And so where we wanted to kind of really focus on here is that for us as an industry, when we're starting to think about our talent, we're looking at how we're trying to pre-board them or onboard them. We want to support the autonomy. We want to create those environments, support that ability for them to own and have control of the environments that they're in. We want to enhance the connectiveness, and we want to do that through building capability on that. And you'll see that we've kind of demonstrated that through various stages coming in. So from really focusing on these three areas, you can start to think about that from how your company is also thinking about how your employer brand and your recruitment process is happening. So how are you actually driving these human intrinsic behaviors to support those parts of your early talent cycle? But then, of course, how do we start to build out this when we look at any part of that cycle? So pre-boarding, onboarding, into the capability build and ongoing on their duration of their program, whether it's a 6-month program, 12-month, 2 years, or 3 years, depending on which company you're with. Really just thinking about that in complete narrative of how that's going forward. So we've got some fantastic partnerships that we have been supporting and working with during early career talent. As I mentioned, we've got quite a few that we have got on this call with us, which I'm delighted to have involved. Thank you for those of you who are joining us today. And what DBL are great at doing, and what we love to do, is share insights about where there's some examples of clients who have had to maybe approach their program slightly differently, maybe innovate due to a situation that they have had to manage, but also how can we just share those insights with you all so that you can also have some takeaways coming through. We do have 3 examples or 3 case studies coming through on that. These case studies are available for Val to share with you if you're wanting to have a bit more insights about some of that coming through. I won't be touching on all 3 of them today due to time limit, but also I do want to make sure we focus on one in particular. But just to give you a bit of an insight here, we worked with 3 different companies across the globe, Microsoft, and I see we've got Isha and Zubin joining us today. Thank you both for joining us. We worked with Microsoft on a virtual experience program, which was a great opportunity in 2020 in being able to provide availability and focus on work readiness skills while also providing an immersive experience program for any student in the Southeast Asia region. And this was a really great example of how we were really trying to build both autonomy, connectiveness, and then of course capability to help those students in an uncertain time coming through. We have talked about the Microsoft example in some detail in an earlier SEAAGE session in 2020, which was fantastic. And again, thanks for hosting us, but we would happy to share some data on that. What I want to focus on today is the actual example we've got with Capital One, which is a really interesting one. Now, Capital One is a company that we worked with coming out of the back end of last year. They had the situation where they had interns coming in that were all of a sudden working remotely in the middle of a pandemic and a nationwide lockdown. So the cohort that Capital One had was two distinctive groups of interns. It was software engineers and business analysts that were coming through. And the entire internship program was converted to a remote and a virtual mode very quickly. So I'm sure a lot of you are resonating with this already. If you had to do that in 2020, moving from an in-house, in-company, in-person internship program to all of a sudden pivoting to virtual, this is an example, another example globally of where we did that with our partnering client, Capital One. What they wanted to focus on was two areas of aspects here. They wanted to focus on the right capability build for the interns themselves, but also how were they preparing the managers in this environment and how to set them up on that. So the virtual modules for the interns that were covered on were skills such as adaptability mindset. We looked at remote self-management, we looked at remote personal branding, and we looked at remote teamwork and collaboration. So 4 key skills that supported the intern experience program for them. To coincide with that, we then supported virtual delivery of modules for managers. And those modules for managers were on effectively leading interns remotely. So how we were equipping the managers to know how to lead interns remotely and addressing the challenges of managing these interns from distant and then practicing the coaching to manage motivators. We looked at also the skill of energizing and supporting interns remotely, which is all about the difference between high and low energy meetings and their effects and energizing interns remotely. And then the third skill was creating inclusive teams for interns remotely, which is becoming a really, really important point, particularly as we support diverse workforce in different environments. How do we now equip the managers to know how to create those inclusive environments in a hybrid working environment? And so we accompanied both the intern development and the intern managers development on that. And the virtual modules had a fantastic outcome from it. We achieved a 90% satisfaction across the intern and manager cohorts, which is an average score. We do a very high quality score here at DBL of 6.3 out of 7. And some of the comments, which I think was really important from the interns themselves, was comments such as, this helped me view my experience of working remotely in a much better way. And one other comment which we thought was very tangible was, it taught me what to focus more on when doing any group-based work, especially in a remote environment. And this whole idea of how we're creating capability build to support interns to then bring the best versions of themselves is there where it supported the initiative and strategy direction of Capital One. So I wanted to share a bit more insights on that. We've definitely got examples and case studies that we can share. As I said, if you'd like to have access to those and get a bit more insights, then Valerie will be more than happy to connect with you afterwards and share that further. Great, I'm just going to pause. Val, any comments coming through chat, questions?
Yes, Angela. So real great questions surrounding purpose and culture. Nava has kindly asked, what are our thoughts on fixing the loss of sense of purpose, especially in ECT who are working remotely? And another question from Ananya, she has asked, how do we ensure fresh grads understand the culture of an organization, as culture is something that may not be easily addressed virtually?
Yeah, great question. I'm going to take that last question first, if that's okay. How are we supporting fresh graduates, so newly recruited graduates, into the culture of the organisation? I welcome anybody. Has anyone got any insights or something they'd like to share that they've done or they're considering in doing this year? Please, if you'd like to raise your hand, we'll be happy for you to unmute yourself and share. Anything coming through? No, no sharing yet. Okay, great. Well, look, I think I can definitely give one example. So one example of how we have definitely looked at how we've support clients in helping to strengthen the culture of the organization is actually connecting some of those capabilities exactly to that. So when we look at some of the content skills like self-awareness or building personal brand, for example, we start to utilize and connect tools that are actually referencing and reflecting immediately back to your organization's values and your tools itself. And that's a really great example of how we can start to do that in remote environments, ways that we can actually allow a graduate to understand what that cultural value can be demonstrated, how they can demonstrate it, and how they can personally connect to it, and therefore show it in a formal environment is a great way of starting to do that and starting to allow that to take place. So that's definitely been some examples that we've come through on that. I'm just checking no one had their hand up. No one wants to share anything else? No? That's totally fine. All right, excellent. And what was the first question there? Val, can you just read that first one back out to me, please?
Yes, sure, Angela. What are our thoughts on fixing the loss of sense of purpose, especially in ECT who are working remotely?
Yeah, great. I think that's a really important point. There is actually a couple of examples that we are going to share. And one of those actually is thinking not necessarily about what you do at pre-boarding and onboarding. And we have to consider that we've got cohorts that have started in our working environment during 2020, during an environment that we were all navigating. There is an opportunity in how we start to think about what we do to support that talent when we offboard them from their program. So when we start to think about the effect of how we can start to allow or regroup from what we couldn't give them at the start of their program, perhaps we can recover from that and give them an experience at the end of their program, which will then allow them to build that greater purpose coming into play. And we do have an example of that, which I will share shortly, which might be a great consideration to think about, particularly for your 2020 cohorts who have had the situation like we all have, and just navigating quite an uncertain time and just working with us to flex and be agile on that. So I'll share that through. Thanks, Val. Appreciate the questions. Excellent. So just to look at what we're going to go here, the next stage of this session is to actually now give you a little bit more tangible outcomes of what we can do here. So focusing on the areas that the research suggests are most important in the current context in a hybrid future, we're looking at supporting into autonomy. And how do we do that in hybrid working and thriving through uncertainty? We want to enhance connectiveness. And how do we do that? By building belonging in your organization. And then, of course, how do we then build capability, which also helps to support the well-being of individuals coming into play. And so just to give a little bit of a sense here, and coming back to some of the earlier questions that we've got, here are some of the key skills that we have identified. If you were to look at any prioritization of skills for a hybrid working environment, if you're looking at your early career talent, but also thinking about your managers who are supporting your early career talent, here is what we believe are the top 8 that should be considered. Now, if you're looking at order of prioritization, there definitely is a level of consult there. You want to really think about where your gaps are in your existing programs, where maybe you're not building that capability or providing that capability opportunity. But for ease of looking at the slide, definitely look from left to right, and that will show you a natural flow of order of how these skills can be considered and how they can be delivered to your talent workforces. So looking right from networking, how are you thinking about networking in either a remote environment, so where your only opportunity to network is through a virtual meeting environment or through virtual interactions and conversations, but then also how do you balance that versus then networking in person when you're able to come back into the office coming in on that. So really looking at how those hybrid situations can support the tangible skill of networking to support those areas. Moving then into your personal brand, which is then connecting back to your personal values, your personal strengths, what you're really comfortable with, and then how are you connecting that back to the values of your organization. Really critical to think about how that's starting to be built as a foundation skill that builds more security for your young talent. They will also find that they connect even faster to the organization by being able to bring that ability through. Teamwork and collaboration, as we've addressed earlier in the session today, becoming a really, really, really big skill, and how we do that remotely. And then, of course, combining that difference between remotely and in person, and then going through into a self-management, adaptable mindset. Taking charge of your career during change is a really interesting one. This has come out from a lot of research and insights, and also feedback we're getting from our global clients around how young talent are not really clear on how they can navigate rolling off their graduate program, whether they have to pursue or look for what kind of role they're going to have in your organization, or how are they best to transition from the graduate program into their permanent position or role in the organization. This one is all about how do we give them the autonomy and the ability to really take charge of that change, how they manage that feelings that they've got, and then how they can go out and persevere with that ability to transition. And then social intelligence and emotional intelligence is becoming quite big key points as well. And we have those skills there. At the bottom, you'll see for managers, there's 3 skills that we've come through. These have all been actually freshly created through Thriving Through Uncertainty modules. And this is all really to address and support that our global workforce have all been navigating this environment for the first time. Not only are we asking or seeing young talent needing that support, but we're also seeing your more mature demographics, so your more mature talent, they've never had to navigate these environments themselves. So they're also putting their hand up and saying, look, how can I be an effective manager in a hybrid working environment or remote working environment? So we've just outlined some key skills and prioritizations coming through there. By the way, we're very happy to share any of these slides with you post this if that's going to help reflect in your internal strategy discussions and strategy thinking. What I wanted to share here is our first kind of points on key skills for building belonging. So how are we starting to really think about that? How are we starting to prioritize that? Again, the same approach with the slide. We're looking at order of prioritization, going from left to right on your screen as you look at it. So own your own belonging, promote others' belonging is becoming kind of your 2 crucial skills, your capabilities. If you were just to look at 2 skills to help build belonging and the feeling of inclusiveness and belonging, then these would be the 2 skills that we would suggest that you prioritize and focus on. And then of course that moves into then further ability to build connections, how individuals are building connections to allow belonging to take place. How do you have culture champions, and how are individuals being seen and taking the role as culture champions? And then of course, how do we look at remote belonging coming in on that? And again, just an outline of what we can do to support managers. And then coming into your well-being, this I think is a really important one. Coming back and addressing some of that research data that I shared earlier before, and some of those reorderization of the skills and the prioritization of skills. If you are really thinking about well-being of your early career talent and your wider talent, but let's focus on early career talent, then these are the key skills that will support and enable well-being and positive well-being to your talent coming through. So these are skills like adaptable mindset. I think that's probably been one of our most sought after skills globally in the last 6 months. This is one that we've pretty much been supporting any talent with at the moment. How we are helping and supporting individuals to have an adaptable mindset. They might be okay with the change is happening, but how do they continuously adapt and know that they're going to have to keep adapting as our workforce continue to evolve, going through this time in our world and coming out of the global pandemic, whenever that may be for the region that you're in, and then building that into resilience training, motivation training, confidence and purpose. Again, listing the top 3 skills for managers. We want to address that. It's really important. We are seeing more and more requests for mid-managers, senior managers, executives, just asking for genuine support on how they build capability to better support the organization and support their teams in turn. So this is where we've also outlined some of those key skills coming through on that piece as well. And this is probably answering, I think, one of the earlier questions we had is how we were starting to think about how we would map that. So this is a pretty full page. I'm hoping you're enjoying all that. Please don't feel overwhelmed that you need to do all this. That's not the point of this slide. The point of this slide is to actually start to share with you all our insights on when you are thinking about certain capability build and certain skills that you have identified is required to either support your company value or support the behaviors that you need your early career talent to be focusing on, then here is an idea of how you want to start to think about building that through your formal development journey. So taking this pre-boarding idea, for those who have not heard about this before, there is an increasing and a growing trend globally where companies, particularly this year, when we're finding a lot of graduates can't go on their gap year, they can't go on their summer vacation, they can't travel abroad. So there's actually a unique opportunity in how organizations are supporting in this pre-boarding phase, that time when the graduate gets the letter of offer, the job offer, before they commence their first day, what is some formal development that can help them in their well-being, their readiness for work, and of course their mindset and preparing for that transition to the workplace. And then of course then we're building that into the onboarding. So we talk a lot about when you're looking at onboarding your graduates to do that with a bang, how do you do that effectively? Thinking about the incorporation of not only your technical skills and your business skills, where it might be business system training or business technical training, how do you combine that and elevate and accelerate that development through the connection of soft skills and these human skills coming through. So you would see there's a lot of skills that normally traditionally we might not focus until well and truly further down the graduate journey. This is now all been pushed up front right in the onboarding time. So again, teamwork and collaboration, we've talked about in detail, definitely a big skill for us to keep thinking about. But going into anything like complex problem solving, resilience training, influencing and managing our adaptable mindset, right from the get-go, really been thinking about how that's happening in the onboarding side. And then of course, looking at then capability build and ongoing support, depending on how long your journey or your development journey is for your interns or your graduates. Here are capabilities or top capability skills that we've identified as, if you were to look at any that's going to support the transition of your talent, these are the ones that we would encourage you to look at. And just to consider, again, order of prioritization, how does that work and connect back to your already established formal development programs, and how can some of those actually accelerate that transition of that young talent and build the well-being and belonging that they also desire as they move into the workplace as well. Just going to pause. Val, anything coming through chat? Anyone? I'm hoping people are liking this page because this is a great little tangible takeaway page. Please feel free to take a screenshot. We're happy to share this screen with you so you can do some internal analysis. But yeah, any comments coming through, Val?
Yeah, so lots of them have asked whether or not we'll be sharing this slides post session. So yes, we'll definitely share. So don't fret about taking a photo or like writing down notes now. So Rihan also resonates with the importance of upskilling managers. Sue has asked what are the specific capabilities that managers should be equipped with. So hopefully, Sue, this slide would give you more clarity on that. Jill has asked for managers what level of remote engagement, be it one-to-one virtual chats once a week, is suggested to energize and create a sense of belonging/direction without it ending up with diminishing returns. That's one question that Jill has asked. Yes.
Great. That's a lot of great comments coming through. Can you just repeat that one from Jill for me again, please, Val?
No problems, Angela. For managers, what level of remote engagement, example, one-to-one virtual chats once a week, is suggested to energize and create a sense of belonging/direction without it ending up with diminishing returns?
Great. Yeah, excellent question. And I do really think this is a question that might have various answers depending on the environment of your organization, so the industry that you're in, but also how those individuals are kind of, what's the routines and the habit nudges that are happening in the business as well. I would say that if there's a requirement for management to ensure that they have one-on-one sessions with their talent, with staff coming through, you'd want to make sure that there's a frequency of, anything around that once every 2 weeks period is a good average to come on, and a good kind of guide to take on that. We're also seeing companies where they're doing a combination of one-on-one time from manager to the young talent, as well as team time, so manager with a collection and group of team members as well. So I would be saying, again, the average we're seeing is probably about once a week, if that's being supported and aided through any kind of formal development or formal training coming through, with the main heightened time being that onboarding period of time, that first 30 to 90 days, that first 3 months of their onboarding. How are they really being supported? And then allowing them to start build those autonomy through the business and being able to manage those relationships themselves going into play. I hope that helps a little bit. Thanks, Val.
No problems.
Excellent. Great. So we don't normally share this, but I thought it might be very useful for everybody on this call today. So there are various mediums that make up a formalized development journey or program and how you're supporting your early career talent. So just wanted to make sure that I shared this. Again, a good reference point for you to review internally. Is this what you're also building and creating in a blended environment to then support maybe hybrid environments or in-person or virtual modes as well of delivery? So looking at program briefing, so kind of kickstart your program with the overview of the purpose, the objectives and the journey for the program participants. And this is also where it's a great opportunity to provide program briefings for your participant managers. So these empower your managers, set them up for success. They know how they can best support their teams during the program and to deepen the learning and support you also in that ability as well. So program briefings are really important. We look at facilitated sessions, so instructor-led sessions, highly interactive virtual sessions, incorporating both coaching, using features through the tool that we'll be using, whether it's chat, polls, workshopping ideas coming in on that, allowing a real, immersive, well-stimulated, facilitated session is becoming there. Then looking at kind of immersive experiences. So these are looking at opportunities where you can immerse your participants in activities which enable them to put a range of skills into practice. So you may have heard of some of these immersive experiences being like amazing races or a fun informal team activity that's coming into play. This is a great way to really start to incorporate and blend the formal side of the development to more informal, more kind of relaxed connectedness times, but allows the individuals to also start to demonstrate some of those skills coming through. We talk to what we call now habit nudges, which, as I've addressed, DBL's in the business of changing behavior. So one of the most effective ways that we change behavior is to help people to develop new habits. So when we think about that, we look at a range of what we call habit nudges. When they come off a formal learning environment, what are the nudges that they're getting when they're back in their role, they're back in the business, that's going to help them to feel empowered, encouraged, build autonomy, build mastery to start to use those skills and start to develop that. So that's where we start to support a bit more in habit nudges, or whether you're starting to think about how that happens with either how they get nudged through support of their managers, their teams, or maybe some of the tasks that they're also required to do. The final thing is capstone events. So capstone events, again, is looking at the people at either the beginning or the end of the experience. So very traditionally in our industry, we look at capstone events, either launching, kickstarting a program with a bang, or how do we end the program with a very significant capstone event coming through. So by creating an impactful event that celebrates the end of a program, we have a number of strategies and ideas to help make a lasting impression and to deepen and extend the learning. And those capstone events actually are becoming a bit of a growing trend. I mentioned before about our cohorts for 2020 and how they've really had to come into our working environments in quite a changing, uncertain time. There might be moments that you feel this talent has not had the best experience due to whatever unforeseen circumstance may have happened. You could actually recover from that feeling or that experience by looking at your capstone event at the roll-off of that program. How are you thinking about actually finalizing the program in a really positive experience? Normally, behaviorally, if you end something in a very well experienced end, that has an overall average lasting impression over the entire experience. That's a consideration that you could consider as well if you've got some concern with cohorts who may have commenced their journey with you in 2020 and how that's coming through. Excellent. And just to wrap up and sum it all up, now I think we can all agree with this, it's not the time to pull back on workforce development efforts, but instead to double down on commitments to building a resilient workforce that can adapt in the face of constant change. I think that's a really important point. I think it's coming back and referring right back to a lot of the data that we've been sharing from the industry, the data that our research is starting to share. There is an increased effort now on how we are doubling down on how we're building resilient workforces, how we're being more human, how we're building capability through that, and then how are we supporting our talent through an uncertain time and an uncertain future coming through. Great, that's the end of the session. I really hope that that was helpful for you. For those of you, again, who might be interested, DBL has a quarterly newsletter called Shareables that we share content, we share stories, we share data, we share information that we've gathered, insights, case studies, anything that we feel could be really beneficial for our clients and our network. If you're interested and would like to make sure you're on that mailing list, please just go through the link that Val's about to share, and we'll make sure that we get you engaged in those quarterly newsletters coming through. But something that we're really passionate about, we've got a lot of information. We don't want to hold on to it. We want to share it. We want to make sure that everybody is aware of what we're starting to see as either emerging trends or maybe as shifts in our industry and how we can better support and equip the talent that are coming into the workforce. So very happy to share that. And of course, if you'd like to participate in sharing anything through that newsletter, please reach out to us and we'd love to do that as well. Excellent. We're done very well on time. And I do want to just take a moment. We did factor some time for questions and answers. So, or anyone wanted to share some feelings, some thoughts, anything that was shared on here that you kind of went, oh, okay, I'm really glad that was mentioned, because now that's supporting exactly what I'd like to think about moving into it. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. But Val, is there any questions come through the chat? Or if anyone would like to ask a question, please just raise your hand on the icon and we can let you unmute yourself and ask.
So Ange, Hongwei from SAP has asked and suggested this really interesting comment. Could we have an e-social session to share ECT experience in each company?
Can we have an e-social experience? Oh, okay, I like that idea.
Amazing.
I mean, that's something we can facilitate at SEAAGE.
Yeah.
And Angela, you had it before. Remember we met you in Singapore. Remember the social activities we had together? I missed that.
I know.
You can't do that now. We can only do the E one, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I miss it too, for sure. We have to do it virtually with our own drinks and food supplied.
I know.
Ange, I just had a quick thought to throw in, if that's okay, if I've got one moment.
Thanks, James. Go ahead.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ange. Hi, everybody. I'm James Hooper, the COO for DBL. And I just wanted to come back to a few questions that people asked around manager support, particularly around one of the questions from Sue around the ways to increase the motivation or the engagement with managers to help get them involved in better supporting the graduates and better supporting cultural alignment and inclusion. And it's a really great question. And I just wanted to come back to it because a lot of our clients and partners in Australia and the UK have been getting a lot of success by the simple fact that there is a really powerful driving force for this via our early career talent programs. The reality is that it's very hard to get time from managers who've got wide-ranging responsibilities to come in, refresh on the importance of behavioral skills, refresh on things like belonging and inclusion. And we know that those capabilities in our managers are relevant to the whole of our workforce, not just the early career talent components. But it's hard to get that time. So when companies are investing a lot of money, which the collective input is to our graduate programs, when you look at the grads, the wages, the support, all of our program management time, there is a hugely different commercial driver in order to ensure the best return on investment and impact of those graduate programs. And that's usually the hook that we're finding companies are able to use to bring managers into short, sharp development sessions like Angela's been talking about, with the express purpose of getting the most out of the investment in this key initiative. And then by very natural extension from there, we will engage managers. We find they get refreshed, they want to come back and engage in more sessions, and they just naturally, by osmosis, will start to leverage those skills in how they're managing their wider teams, and it will start to become more of a key part of the narrative and the discussions that happen among managers and between managers and the organization about the priorities of behavioral skills and cultural belonging and individual contribution that we all need. So I'd really encourage everyone to think about this as just one of the ways that our early career talent programs can provide the thin end of a wedge to get a lot of other cultural development and change initiatives happening, particularly with managers. So really powerful vehicle to use. So I just wanted to come back to that. Thanks very much.
Thanks, James. That's a great point and great to have you on board. Thanks for your support.
Oh, pleasure. Haven't done very much at all.
Hi, would anyone else like to share anything, any comments, observations, maybe an idea that you're about to trial out this year for the first time? You're not sure how it's going to go, but I'm sure as we are very supportive of each other in this industry, anything shared is well received. Anna.
Hi everyone, nice to see you here. I thought I'd maybe take opportunity to share a little bit of what was happening at the ISE conference last week, which was the Institute of Student Employers conference, where actually DBL spoke a couple of times, and also there was a lot of sharing from the UK around what was happening in the development space. These messages were all over it, and I think one of the things that was particularly interesting was around psychological safety. And how do you build that psychological safety for individuals in your cohorts who are not seeing each other face to face as much? How do we build that relationship? There was a couple of great, amazing stories out there. Accenture, I think, hands down, had the most interesting and exciting onboarding journey that you could ever see, where they were using a virtual space for them to onboard their graduates. I don't know if we've got anybody from Accenture here, but in the UK, I had complete induction, onboarding envy, and Jason from my team who's here knows and heard about it several times, because I thought we were actually doing quite a good job because we have an onboarding app, but this was beyond belief amazing. I don't think it's something that we would be able to do because our intakes are small, but those of you with bigger organizations and intakes, they basically had avatars that worked in a space and were able to share and support each other. And it was really, really smart. I'm happy to share more details with people about what they did there. But I think that kind of journey is really important in how we set it up. There were simple things. I know FDM, you're really good at doing this. I think Bloomberg as well are good at doing this, where they were talking about having artifacts that maybe helped you consolidate together. So I can see James in his DBL t-shirt, you know, giving branding of stuff so that people felt connected was a really, really big thing. But they also talked about languages, common language, having familiarity, and the work that we've been doing with DBL. I think that we maybe came to a little bit late this year, but I think we'll get a little bit earlier this year, was also about building some what do we call it, rituals in the training and the development that helps basically just bed people back in. So one of our intakes, for example, in their ritual, they designed it, their intakes, their cohorts go round and they all close their eyes for a moment and they all say what they're wanting to get out of the session. Others do say a little saying, you know, but that actually was really, really impactful in terms of building sense of belonging as well. That's what I wanted to share. I don't know if anybody else from DBL or anybody else was on the ISE conference, but if there's anything else that you wanted to share, but they were the main things that I thought were really important about sense of belonging, artifacts, and building this kind of psychological safety for your incoming graduates.
Thanks, Anna. That's a really great share. And yes, we were involved in our ISE event last week, which a lot of our UK-based team members were part of. And I hear it was a fantastic event. I unfortunately didn't get a chance to get participant of most of it. But I think what your point is that there are some very simple, quite salient ways that companies can really think about those little rituals or habits or routines that really start to build well-being, that start to build the feeling of belonging, and then of course that, you know, kind of really, you know, umbrellas the whole psychologically safe environments that we're wanting talent to feel, to really help them in the security of the role that they're taking and how they're transitioning effectively, and then how they kind of, you know, dare I say, hit the ground running, which is a common coin phrase across our industry. So it's a great thought process, and I think there could be a lot of very simple ways that companies may be doing this already. And if you're happy to share on chat or happy to unmute yourself and share, please do so. I'm sure people would like to hear that.
Hi, Angela. This is Mo from Myanmar.
Yes. Hi, Mo. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. And let me share you some experience where I am having in our country. I've been, and we all have been, you know, working from home. It's almost a year now since, you know, yeah, by April or May of 2020. And we are almost, the COVID is almost, you know, under control by the month of like January, early this year. After that, we have, as you all know, the world is already know that the military corps has been started since February of 1st of February. So, you know, our people are having, even during the COVID, you know, we have our branches are still opening with the, you know, minimum grouping of the staff for the customer service. And after the 1st of February, you know, no branch, even single branches has to be, you know, closed. So, you know, the business is terrible, and right now is no business at all, we can say it. So before that, during the COVID time, we have, you know, the young talented and the graduate fresh grads, we are employed, but due to the COVID, we have like onboarding online system. We have to created the online system onboarding and offboarding processes like that. So before that the recruitment is still ongoing, but right now since last month and this month's going onwards, we have no recruitment at all for the time being. We all hold it until it's necessary, and also no business is running at all. So we are in them, you know, totally no business at the moment. So hopefully we will be, you know, I don't know, and nobody is not sure when we can go back to the normal business. So after that, we might need a fresh grad for business, you know, to start run again. So that's information sharing from our country right now.
No, thank you for that share. And yes, no, sorry to hear that you're still having some challenges to be able to get people back into the workplace. I'm hoping when your company is ready to do that, there are some interesting insights we were able to share, and even some priorities on how you can support those capabilities. But no, I appreciate the sharing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Anyone else? Love to hear from anyone who'd like to share. No? Great, thank you. Well, look, I really appreciate everybody's time. I know it is a particularly busy time for everybody at the moment in our respective roles in the cycle that we're currently at, whether you're getting ready to support your interns coming into the business, where you're starting to prepare for your graduate offers going out, and how you're starting to think about recruitment strategies moving forward. You know, really important that we do have these moments just to press pause on our business as usual tasks and allow these opportunities to regroup together, to connect, to share insights, and of course support each other in what we can all say is a very unprecedented time in our global world that is. As mentioned, we would be very happy to share with you anything to do with the slides and any of those takeaways there that you'd like to review and reflect on further, and to ensure that you're thinking about any of those thoughts and data points coming through when you're considering the support for your own early career talent. Of course, if you have any questions or would like to have any further conversations, the DBL team are always here. We love chats. We're naturally curious. We'd love to hear from you all and understand what you're doing. How are you navigating? And if it's even just an idea you want to bounce off us, we're very much here to help and to offer that support if that's required. So Val, unless there's anything else you'd like to add, I would like to officially thank everybody, and then of course final words back to John on behalf of SEAAGE to give us an update on what's next on our calendar of events.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's been such a pleasure to sit in today, and my brain is going crazy with ideas, and I'm looking forward to continuing. Here at SEAAGE, we're working on something really big, and if you've been a part of us, you know our flagship event that we like to do every year is our annual conference. It's usually in this time frame, the March, April. Obviously this year, although we did look into it up until the very last moment about trying to bring people together, we thought it would be prudent that maybe we hold off that enthusiasm for one more year. So this year we're going to be trying to pull off a virtual conference that's going to be taking place at the end of April, the last week, April 28th, 29th, and 30th. That's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I've been told that sitting in front of a screen all day long can be quite painful. So we're doing half days on each one of those days, 3 sessions, including a deeper dive on what we were talking about today with DBL. Josh Mackenzie, the co-founder and the chairman, will be facilitating that session all the way from Scotland. Power on to Josh to be doing that. It's not exactly the most time-friendly thing for him. So we'll be doing a little bit of that, but also some really interesting things about the macro view of not just Singapore, but into the region of what's going on here. And something that you haven't seen from SEAAGE in the past, but we've got this great session about you as individuals in your careers. What could be the way for you to navigate your career roadmap? I think SEAAGE historically has been really good about helping bring the community and help all of us do our jobs better and how to connect better with early talent, but we've not been too good, and we've forgotten a little bit about the individual, you. Whether you're on the attraction side or the development side, or even the strategic side and the managing of early talent. So in this conference, we'll be bringing out a bunch of people talking about, you know, where the future roadmap is, perhaps in early careers. Specifically for Hong Wei, I had a great conversation with Renata, who leads SAP's early talent globally, and she'll be sharing some stories about what it means to lead globally from Asia in the early talent role. So a whole bunch of different things. And of course, we haven't forgotten about the social aspect, right? Obviously, e-social, but you're going to see some speed networking from us, some social lounge and icebreakers, and all the kind of stuff that we can try to do to help facilitate those links in the community. So check it out. We're about to launch later today the actual website that has all the details. We've made the prices, I think, very easy to tolerate, I hope. Right. And starting with, and you're hearing this first, this is the first time I'm saying this publicly, but we're going to be launching with a buy one, get one thing. So it'll be you with a friend coming along to this session, the more the merrier. And we're hoping that given that we're virtual, those of you not based in Singapore, because I will admit, we are called the Southeast Asian Association, but we've been very Singapore focused in the last few years, but I'm hoping to change that. And given that we're virtual, we'll be more inclusive to those of you in Malaysia, Thailand, I see Vietnam, Myanmar, and even our friends up north in Hong Kong and beyond. Hopefully we can bring you all together. Okay, that's it for me. Check it out, SEAAGE.org, and we'll get you some information through DBL with the slides today of how you can find out more about the conference. So I hope to see all of you in that virtually in just a month's time.
Brilliant. Thank you, John. Looking forward to that. That is going to come up quickly, but really appreciate you providing us it virtually. We look forward to connecting with you all then. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your attendance. Great to see you all. Have a beautiful day wherever you're based and keep in touch. Speak soon.
Thank you, everyone.